tehát Solti előtt vagyok, ahogy már az István említette, és megköszönöm, hogyha helyet foglaltok. Na, ahogy az István is említette, az első előadónk, dr. Irene Houtman, az előadását praktikus okokból angolul fogja megtartani, kértük, hogy ne hollandul mondja el, tehát ezért most I just asked you not to speak in Dutch because probably more people understand English than Dutch here. So anyway, szóval folytatom akkor magyarul. A TNO-ról tegye már fel legyen szíves a kezét, aki tudja, hogy mi az. Na jó, akkor nem lendültek a kezek, akkor gyorsan elmondom. A T, az N és az O betű az egészen egyszerű dolgot jelent, the Netherlands Organization. Ez egy non-profit szervezet, vagy mondhatnánk, hogy magyarul csak így nem annyira szexi, hogy civil szervezet, meg is nehogy félreértsétek. Tehát, hogy ez egy non-profit szervezet, és igazándiból ez egy törvény hozta létre Hollandiában 1932-ben, és az egészen egyszerű célja van, hogy ez ugye ez nem egy kormányoktól, egyetemektől, vagy éppen cégektől függő szervezet, ez egy teljesen önállóan működő entitás, hogy ezt a szót használhassuk. És igazándiból az egésznek az a célja, hogy ami alkalmazott kutatás, azon a területeken ők eljuttassák az üzletet, összekössék a már létező kutatásokkal. Tehát igazándiból ők nyilván kutatnak is valamilyen szempontból, ahogy én beszélgettem az Irénével, de az ő elsődleges céljuk az, hogy mindaz, ami már fel van kutatva, fogalmazzunk ilyen nagyon egyszerűen, az hogyan lehet a gyakorlati életben alkalmazni, hogyan lehet az üzleti életben alkalmazni, és hogyan lehet a mindennapjainkban, tehát úgymond a magánszférában is mindezt megtenni. Ami még nagyon érdekes volt, és egyébként ajánlom, hogy ennek esetleg, ha érdekel benneteket, akkor nézzetek utána. A TNO nagyon különböző területeken van, és egyébként összesen 7 országban, tehát Hollandián kívül 6 országban vannak kirendeltségeik, nevezzük őket így, és ahol mind-mind gyakorlatilag, és ilyen helyeken vannak, hogy van Japánban például, van Szingapurban, tehát nem véletlenül talán, hogy ezeken az alkalmazott kutatásokon próbálják támogatni azokat a cégeket, és dolgoznak együtt egyetemekkel, stb. Pontosan azért, hogy mindez megvalósítható legyen, amiről ő is fog beszélni. Említettem, hogy például az energiaszektorban vannak, fogalmazunk így, kutatások, illetve dolgoznak különböző projekteken. Ahonnan az Irene érkezett, az a health, vagy living health, és azon belül is az ő témája, amit most itt láttok is pontosan, amit előzetes egyeztetés alapján, hogy a mental health, ezekről fog ő beszélni nekünk. Nagyon érdekes lesz, úgyhogy figyeljétek, én azt gondolom, nagy-nagy tisztelete. Now I ask you to go through your presentation, please then, okay?
Thank you very much. Good morning, everybody. Thank you, Istvan Ilöt, for inviting me for this presentation. I don't understand anything about Hungarian apart from igen and nem. So it's suggested that you already talked a lot about my presentation. It's a very nice thing to present here to you on this topic. I will talk about the mental health and well-being, risk factors, risk groups, and risk management at work. Particularly because in my work with TNO, we do a lot of research as well as consultancy. I do more of the research, colleagues do more of the consultancy. But I also am involved in projects for companies, for the government, for the Dutch government, but also European projects, and use some data which is also used in this presentation. You will see shortly. Let's go. It is. I'll start very broad. It is, of course, an introduction, but my main area is on work. So that is where I go more into. Become more specific, let's say that. But to start very general, this whole conference is about mental health and well-being. And of course, the biggest organization in the World Health Organization, talked on these topics, defined them. And there is some sort of a development in that too. The most recent one, in essence, mental health is a positive state of psychological well-being. That's what they say. But they recently also say that mental health as a state of well-being in which every individual realizes his or her potential, can cope with the normal stresses of life, and can work productively and fruitfully, and is also able to make a contribution to his or her community. So it's a very broad definition, and it extends the definition, which is more conservative, which is put down below, that mental health is just the absence of mental health disorders. So there is a tendency, this also shows it, that mental health is really defined in a very broad sense, about functioning in real life, and it's also positive. On the other hand, and I'll show you that too, when you want to persuade someone or parliament, employers or managers, it's often the ill health side or the negative side that you use because you can quantify it much more better. So business cases are often built on what does it cost when the system fails, the system of positive things. So in this presentation, I want to talk something about the prevalence and impact of mental ill health, but also about things that are behind these, prevalence and trends in mental health, because it's also in the EU, but it's a sort of a trending topic, the mental health. And that has to do with the fact that they think it's even becoming more and more important in the near future, mainly because of the way the world is changing, and also the way the world of work is changing. So that's sort of a basic trend change that is behind these increased attention worldwide on this topic of mental ill health. I will show you something about the trends in quality of work in the EU, because they're EU data. Also, I will show you what Hungarian workers look like as compared to the rest of Europe. But it also needs to be addressed, the idea of prevention. When there is a problem where you want to preserve something, that is mental health, you have to do something about it. When we talk about ill health, and the figures I used here come from the recent OECD reports in 2012 and 2015, and a paper by Witchen on the costs. Mental health disorders occur in a very large part of the EU community. About more than a third suffers from a mental disorder each year, which is quite a lot. And we talk about, anxiety is the most prevalent one. Insomnia is very prevalent then. And a third is a major depression, and that is the most debilitating of them all. It's also the most costly of them all. And, often you think, people with mental disorders are often away from the labor market. They are, and that's true, a lot of them, particularly the severe cases, are out of work. They're unemployed. But still, the majority of people who work also have common mental disorders. And so there is a large group that's at risk of job loss and also exclusion from the labor market. And then, one of the things behind this, and they understood this when they did random interviews with diagnostic interviews by telephone, that for a lot of people, mental health problems are not recognized. They're underdiagnosed and undertreated. So that is why, organizations like the World Health Organization really make an issue of it. And the costs are also very high. In 2013, Matrix, it's a UK research institute, they calculated the cost of mental ill health. They came to a number, of course, assuming a lot of things as well, that it's 3 to 4.5% of the general domestic product, which is quite some issue. It's an economic issue. They came to a number of 620 billion euros a year. I don't know how much in forint that is, but it's times 300 or something like that. Yeah. And the other thing is that when you look at it as a whole, it does, and try to attribute the costs to types of, who pays for it anyway. Employers came out on top here in this report. 44% of the costs were paid by the employers, which was more than, for example, paid by the social insurances and, for example, the mental health care costs. And these costs were attributed to absenteeism and presenteeism. And again, here, depression came out as the most costly of them all. So it was an issue. And they also said, but they not only, also the OECD said, well, positive mental health is fundamental to business performance and population health, but on the other hand, that's very difficult to prove, to show which share is it then. And there is a lot of know-how available on how to do something about it, but measures or prevention often is not used or not understood enough, and that is why they talk about an implementation gap. So there's a lot of knowledge, there are also good practices, but it's not known enough, particularly by the employers. There's limited dissemination and good practice, particularly in areas which are, of course, in Europe a lot, particularly in South and Eastern Europe. Social medium-sized enterprises or the micro-enterprises, of course. Well, a lot of the organizations are small, don't have the knowledge about these issues because they're quite different from their normal business. And also precarious work, black work, people with flexible contracts. These are the precarious groups. And it appears that particularly in situations of work, nobody invests in them. Well, something about the changing world of work. Well, things are changing, we all know that. In fact, there are three large groups of changes I would to tap on. They're very global, in a way. The first I called globalization has to do with, well, the fact that world trade is worldwide. A lot of organizations, employers have to deal with the fact that well, their business is elsewhere, is over the world, or they buy in from other countries, particularly EU, of course, is boundaryless, is still a boundaryless trade place to be. But it also resulted in an intensification of work because of the competition between organizations, many temporary contracts. In the EU it was rising until shortly. What you also saw is that there's more and more work in terms of services, the service economy. And precarious groups are growing. Women who often had small jobs become more and more full-time employees. Migrants are coming. And there are all kinds of new developments on IT area. Well, we have all our telephones, our computers, that you can work in the evening. I can do my work here for TNO in the Netherlands, no problem whatsoever. So your work has become independent of time and place. The boundaryless work has advantages, but it has also some disadvantages. In general, the work-life balance is gone. The way or the time you can be free of or do not expect a phone call or an email or a mail from your employer, for example, these times are gone. And innovation is a sort of a magic word, but it also means often increase in productivity, which indeed results in, an intensification of work. And there's a demographic change. We all know that. We do see, I just said it before, more women on the labor market, but also we are graying. We live longer. In general, fewer children are born, so we are graying. And so that often means there's pressure also to sustain the social insurances, social security systems, to work on longer. On the other hand, outside Europe, all kinds of things are happening as well. And you see there's more migration, economic migration, but also due to war, which leads to more precarious work, black work also. So psychosocial risks and mental health at work are an important part of the work and health policy. In Europe, you have a European framework on occupational safety and health, which does say that all employers are bound to do something about it. They have to inventory, they make an inventory of the risks that are relevant. And to date, what you also see, given the changes I reflected upon just now, mental health at work are conceptually linked to broader policy issues like sustainable employment, which is not only about being able to work longer, which is a health issue, or you may label that as a health issue, but it's also that you should want to work longer. And even in the Netherlands, for example, that might be very different along sectors, for example. I know that, for example, in healthcare and education, the age of people who are saying that they are able to work longer and want to work longer are about equal. But, for example, in public administration in the Netherlands anyway, but maybe also elsewhere, people can work longer but don't want to. And there are a few other sectors where it's the other way around. So there is this, well, we have, as a society, to do a lot to really make it happen that people work longer. And you also should take, from an employment or employer's perspective, the broader vision that productivity in healthy workplaces and prolonged working life is good for health, which benefits the employees, but also the companies and also society as a whole, because we need one another in this issue. And just to look at it in a more sort of a model-like way, what is orange, you might say this is the worker and its organizations. In general, work has some sort of an exposure, sort of risks or challenges, you might see them. The quality of work, which says about the demands, so what does the work asks you to do, the control you have, contact with clients, job insecurity, but also physical risks, the environment, and industrial relations, working times, the training. This may result in outcomes in terms of health, productivity, and things like that. Of course, there are personal characteristics that moderate that. So age is an important issue, gender, education, ethnicity, and other things. But also the company is important because that provides the policies, the potential training for allowing you to, for example, keep up to date with the demands of the job. And there is a sort of outer world, which is still there and also impactful of the worker and its organization, of course. And for looking at European data, I want to present you something on that. I mainly look at the quality of work blocks, and I picked some particularly regarding psychosocial risks. And here you see some trends. And the main thing you see, I think you can get from this, these are very recent data from the European Foundation for the Improvement of Living and Working Conditions. They have a survey every 5 years in the whole of Europe, including Hungary. That is that on a global perspective, many things are rather stable. It doesn't mean that it's stable everywhere, but it does mean that it's quite stable. The only thing that really shows an increase is the blue line, which shows you working with computers 3/4 of your time or more a day, which is really increasing from 25% to over 40% on average. So that is the influence you see of the technology mainly. But the fact that this on a European level is not changing so much doesn't say that beneath it, in countries or in sectors, things are stable. This is a picture just showing the profile of Hungarian workers against the European average. And the European average is the line you see in the middle. The Hungarian worker is compared to that. And apart from the light blue, everything is significant. So it tested. It means that you're significantly more or less, and so negative or positively different from the EU. When it goes to the right of the bar, that it's negative, and when it goes to the left, it's positive. So what you see here is that the Hungarian worker, as compared to the EU worker, generally has somewhat more high job demands. More particularly, that's a big difference, lack of autonomy at work. And this is when you think of the work stress models by Bob Karasik, for example, a very toxic combination, that you have more demands and more lack of control, resulting in a lot of, negative health consequences anyway. Positive is that there's less lack of support for supervisors, so that's a good thing. There's a little bit more job insecurity, but there's considerable more number of hours worked in Hungary. Not so much due to shift work, but other reasons, contracts, or maybe multiple contracts, because it's also something what you see, that people have more than one job, leading to a more unfavorable work-life balance. The physical load on average is a bit less, so heavy workload is less, uncomfortable work postures or sitting at work. Noisy workplaces and environmental workload are all more positive, so to speak, for the Hungarian worker. You can also look at the social or violence and harassment issues, which is quite considered, but also considered part of the psychosocial arena. And in general, what you do see here is that the Hungarian worker has a more positive profile as compared to the European worker. To the interventions. I'll just put the whole slide on. And that is something, the first sentence is something which comes from this framework directive. The general idea is when there is a problem, you should take it, try to tackle it by its source. That's really primary prevention. That means that less people are exposed to the risk. So primary prevention is important. It may not be sufficient in the sense that there are always people who will develop health problems, mental health problems, or drop out of work. So there should be a sort of secondary, tertiary prevention as well. But primary prevention is also within the European framework an important issue. And the do's and don'ts of when you think, well, work-related stress is in principle also something from the organization. It's not only something from the individual, but also from the organization. So we should look systematically in how we can tackle this. There are some do's and don'ts to think of. When you do something in an organization to tackle psychosocial risks, you should assure management commitment and make sure employees participate, which is very important at different levels. So also middle management should they are very important even, take part. And information is important. People should be informed. Communication should be good, and they should keep informed, because when you do something on the risks and it turns out to be sort of a process, then of course it's important to keep people on track and informed during the process as well. And what's also important is psychosocial risk management is also specific. It is not enough when people are just in general informed about the occupational safety and health at risks and when they are asked about the OSH. But it appears that particularly the psychosocial risks, so high demands, control, issues of control, but also issues of support or violence and harassment, they're often very sensitive. Also European surveys show that it's a very sensitive issue. So these risks, these issues should be addressed. Not addressing them, but means not, not having an effective, anyway, psychosocial risk management. I have a tool to alert and guide organizations. I don't think we have time for it now to show it to you. It is a sort of an instrument in Dutch, by the way, but maybe it's still to be understood anyway, to help make the business case for the employer, to see, well, based on statistics which are behind it, when you have a certain size of company, when you are in a certain sector, on average, the absence is partly because of psychosocial risks, and you can calculate. So I really have to say something more. Again, another way to look at intervention, but also you recognize the two levels, the individual level, the organizational level from the previous sheet, and the primary, secondary, and tertiary prevention. I already said primary prevention is important, but it's probably not enough because people will get sick. So you have to do something about people who develop health complaints, mental health complaints, or who drop out for work, and to do something about return to work. I will not go into specifics now into these examples. I have some examples on several of these issues which I can tell you something about, which may help you to think through how well you can look at it. One of the first things I said, it was when you look at psychosocial risks, it's often something which is wrong in the organization, maybe also something with the individual, but you should take a sort of a process, a stepwise step, to take everybody along and to see where the problem is. And this is and the other thing is we already know a lot. There are already things available, so we should make them accessible to the ones who use them. We developed on the internet this strategy for stress prevention at work, which is a stress management approach, leading people through supporting management, supporting consultants in addressing this issue. Behind every step there is a sort of a layer downwards where well, you're supported in all kinds of steps to be made to say, well, is work-related stress present? Do we have information of our organization? Are there any issues? Maybe the medical doctor or so. Is there an issue on stress here? Should I convince management? And then probably you don't have enough information to define exactly where the problem is, what is the problem and for who. So there's a second step. In step 3, what can we do about it? Here is a sort of a search engine which includes all kinds of good, effective interventions by, for example, type of risk or type of sector. You get going, get support on how to do that, how to manage the process and to evaluate it. So this is in fact a sort of a way to help people go through the process. This is quite another intervention. This is an engagement game, and this is an intervention which directs itself to management. And the premise of this intervention is that the effectiveness of work-related stress strongly depends on the participation of managers and the awareness of their role in the process, because their role is very important. Often we let managers play them 2 by 2 at a computer. It's about a Mexican restaurant, and the managers are the manager of the restaurant, and they have employees with their different personalities. And well, this is then the characteristics are listed there. A positive way, fun way of working on this sensitive topic by increasing awareness, by experiencing factors that affect work-related stress and engagement. It creates a sense of urgency because you have to do things. There is a top boss who says things. There is an environment, a city who wants to develop things in the neighborhood, and you as a restaurant have to deal with that as well. But you also see when communicating with your employees, things might go wrong. And you see there are also sort of bars that show the energy level of that employees. And you see what you say to them results to the energy levels in your employees. So you get direct feedback. So it's this tool, this training is aimed at long-term thinking. It provides immediate feedback on your actions. And particularly one employee is very prone to drop out because of burnout. So the energy level is down flat. It creates more cooperation between managers because when you do it 2 by 2, you discuss with them, what shall I say or how shall I deal with this issue? And you should learn to discuss the problems and solution strategies. About return to work, this is the last project or thing I'm going to show you here. After being dropped out because of mental health problems, it appears that when people drop out because of mental health problems, they are bound to have a long-term sickness absence, on average anyway. That's what statistics tells us, and also the disability inflow of people of mental disorders or mental health problems is the largest. In the Netherlands anyway, it's 44% now, but it is in many European countries, and it's comparable anyway. I don't know how it's here in Hungary. But the active support of the supervisor, the employer, is important, and particularly that the employee perceives that as he wants me back. In research, it shows that the chance of return to work of an employee who thinks that his employee wants him back is 9 times more than when he doesn't think that. So that was one of the largest effects in that study. And also, early graded return to work is important. Often people, and also doctors, say when people are out of work because of mental health problems, stay home, don't think of work, try to relax. But it appears to be very bad for the individual, in essence, to not engage in work at all, not to think about work, because then the threshold to get back to work will be even higher. And so it's very important that people gradually, and you discussed it, the one who guides that person, that employee, should discuss it with him, but the view should be on, well, sort of a program to go back to work. Not a pressure, but a program and a view on how to get back. And also another issue which appears to be very important in getting people effectively back to work is to give them in that process, and that's also why the return to work is important. Maybe not their own job, maybe a temporary job with reduced demands, but to have them success experiences, because often when people get out of work, when they are depressed, when they have mental health problems, self-efficacy, self-insecurity, self-security, I should say, is very low. And it's very important that they build that up again to go back to work, which is another very important issue. So, in conclusion, in this presentation, I wanted to show you that mental health and psychosocial risks are serious matters that cost a lot of money when things go wrong there. And it's important to notice that both at national, sectoral and enterprise level, psychosocial risk management is important, but it is also specific. It should be specifically addressed, discussed, communicated about. And the positive approach may be more attractive for enterprises, particularly when it is about primary prevention. So before things really went wrong, engagement is more popular, more positive than burnout. On the other hand, when you have to make the business case, often the other way around is more effective to show what it costs. And whatever the approach, the do's maybe are management commitment important, employee participation important, and transparency about the risks. These all issues are key for healthy, engaging, and productive workplaces as well as employees. Thank you.